This video is nerdy, so be warned. System Lockdown Studios' Murder Drones Insecurities, or as I will be referring to it, MDI, is a fan-made series with basically no connection to the main series. You will not need any knowledge of MDI or the main series in order to watch this video, as I mostly cite stuff to prove myself correct. So if you just trust me like a good viewer, everything will be fine. MDI, as I will be referring to it, is somewhat unknown as far as indie series go, mainly just because it is very much on the coattail of the much bigger Murder Drones series. We will begin by overanalyzing literally everything, which is 2 videos, a song, and a few characters. But first, we have to make some rules. There are a few main ways that you would analyze a series like this. The first is analyzing the teaser trailers, but all of them have been rendered, how do I say this? Decanonized. The second main way is to analyze the creators, as it is very common for creators to mirror themselves onto main characters. The reason we can't do that as much, we'll get to later. The third way is to talk to the creators themselves, aka hold them at gunpoint. Sadly enough, I do not have enough clout to get anyone's attention. Subscribe so I can forcefully request information from the creators of this series. The fourth main way is somewhat a mixture of 2 and 3. It is using Murder Drones as a foundation in order to build more on top of it, that being MDI. They have, again, like I said, rendered this useless because of the fact that it is what's called an alternate universe. Wow, Praxia is messing me up. Which means, you know all those amazing characters you like? No, you do not. These conditions stopping me from getting anything that would actually help me basically means we have to make a few assumptions, or as I'll call them, rules. They are currently on screen. If you put this into the background of whatever game you're playing, I'd suggest going back to the screen and checking it later, but I will say all of them again later on as they come up, so don't be too worried. All of them are just basic stuff. The biggest issue of making such big sections at once is if the audio quality is bad in one, it's gonna be bad in all of them. Anyways, starting with the least complex of the content, we have this video which I'll be referring to as We Are Alive. We first get the name System Lockdown Studios, which I will go over in very little detail later. We begin in an office room, which appears similar to the Cabin Fever office area, if you remember that from the original series. N is also there, implying that happens between episodes 7 and 6, or just somewhere around there. The TV turns and then we meet our director, the Dire Duck. He strangely says he is the lead director for Murder Drones Insecurities on behalf of another group called Animate a Thing, rather than behalf of System Lockdown Studios. A reason for this and the connection between the 2 animation groups I have not been able to find. They state they want to make the series the best it can possibly be, keeping true to the idealism of Murder Drones. They state they have been redoing character arcs, lore, etc., which is why we only have this very minuscule amount of content to go off of. Any normal theorist would just make a video saying, hey, this exists, but no, I have to be special for some reason. They state System Lockdown Studios has about 50 members working on it. They also say stuff about the series which is not going to be important for this video, though I would check these videos out on your own if you plan to watch the series, even if it's just to analyze them like I have been. Meet the robot. This robot is one of 5 creators who we will be noticing in literally any meaningful way. You may immediately notice the fact that this character has the solver colors and the solver symbol. Remember him for later since he will be very important. And in case you don't know me, I have a 3-hour script rewriting the entirety of the lore of Murder Drones, largely because of a single scene. Imagine what I can do with this. All the voice lines and the plot have been done for the pilot. This means they only need to animate. I'd like to see the process they use to animate, though I have a feeling they will not be showing me for no specific reason. Also, if I misgender anyone, because I know that's a big thing, I don't even know the names for most of these characters, let alone their genders. So please give me some slack. This video was made in a weekend. Or at least it was scripted. Now listen to what this one has to say.
You might be thinking, if you have all this artwork, character models, and environments done, why don't you show them? Well, we could reveal all that stuff now, but instead we decided not to do that, for now. We don't want to overhype you guys too early and lead you to think the project is finished, plus you don't see other studios revealing all their stuff early now. But don't worry, we have a lot of cool things that we will show you later on. So stay tuned and keep an eye out on our socials along with our community tab.
No, that is literally what a trailer is supposed to be for. Unless you're in the horror or detective genre, not giving us literally anything to work on does not make too much sense. Although I guess the Murder Drones trailers kinda did the same, didn't they? Dyer comes back, presumably because he's the easiest character to animate, and he says that the pilot may come late 2025, early 2026. He does state this is an estimation and maybe off by a bit. Obviously, with this script being made in December and me recording this January 1st, I had to move this video up by a quick 7 months. Now you know why I can't research the creators. We also see this orange character running. Next section. It is almost exactly 3 seconds after I said that, and I am now much happier knowing that the audio quality isn't awful like it was in the last video. System Lockdown Studios. Meet the System Lockdown Studios channel in case anyone didn't know. How am I going to... If this pops off, I'm going to go insane. Okay. So, which one of these first shirts do you think we're going to actually look at? Good job, it's the second least viewed of them. That is really good since I was actually concerned about this being AI generated by Server 1. That is obviously a joke, please do not sue me for defamation, I do not have the willpower to deal with it. Anyways, meet Serial Designation B, our original character disassembly gem. So imagine Jay, but in the Murder Drones Insecurities lore. That's what this is. In fact, Jay might actually not exist in MDI. Anyways, the main differences that allow us to tell Jay apart are the braid and the fact she has a lot of kitchen-themed items. Her character card, which they posted a few of, says she is naturally violent due to mistreatment in the Elliot Manor as part of the kitchen staff. I know, shocking. She is extremely loyal to Cynthia, as they put it, and is eager to prove herself to Sin. Yes, I use both names, deal with it. Also, no, I will not question the fact that the flamethrower either deleted matter entirely or atomized it. I will also not question the fact that there is nothing saying that this video is not canonized, because honestly, I do not want to deal with it right now. The next section is the MDI OST. It's unclear whether it's called Lockdown or not. The song was made by Soundbird3214, link in the description along with all the other links. The song has been playing in the background this whole time, so you've listened to it at least 8 times by now, and I won't play it for you again like I did with the shirt. You're welcome. We can see who appears to be Khan, father of Uzi if you don't know, and the orange one again. Skipping ahead, we get this scene which I'll let play out. They're using the sound motif from the original series, which tells us a lot. Firstly, the disassembly drones quite literally interrupt the original group, possibly foreshadowing. Also look at the characters. We see N, who has chainsaw hands, good job with fan service, and N to the left. You may be wondering who this character to the right is. I assume this is an old render of serial designation B, though it is unclear. The song is generally heavy-handed. Murder Drones was literally 2 scenes of Cynthia away from being a comedy, so this may just be a different feeling series. It's hard to explain how a series feels in this sense, because it's very much atmospheric, but just trust me for now. If the audio quality magically disappeared, you can figure it out. I'm confident you can figure it out, don't worry. This is the All About trailer, which is the biggest of the videos that we'll actually be able to talk about. Just to be clear, there is about 3 beforehand that we will not be mentioning, because it's not clear whether they're canonized or not. Again, it starts with a logo, I sense a pattern, and I'll actually go over it. It's what's called a plated intro. I don't know why it's called that, but it is. And it almost has a news anchor style. That's not your job, it's mine. Anyways, we get a similar start with the scene of N, but this time B runs in. And if you noticed, it does not say it's not canonized. This implies that serial designation B, the new drone that they made up, was at the cabin fever area at the same time as episode 6. This likely has to do with the original plot, although the fact that we do not even know if characters like Uzi are alive kinda hurts. It could also be a complete accident or just a joke. Maybe they meant to put it as non-canonized and they just forgot. That is 100% an option. We get into the screen to see Dyer again. It's not clear why they're showing this as on the TV. It definitely helps me connect the main Murder Drones and MDI lures together, but it's not clear what they are doing with it. Now, 2 YouTubers, Yagster and Con Goatman, are immediately brought in. They are called audience members, but let's look at the last video again. Remember that one? Yes, audience members. You guys definitely are audience members, not a doubt in my mind. If you look in the description, they're also titled Public Relations and Head of Public Relations. In case you're wondering why I know their names, but not the other characters, it's because they actually introduce themselves. These are going to be who I'll refer to as the 3 main creators. We have the 3rd sentient duck, who came from SCP Foundations, a biblically accurate angel straight from Hazbin Hotel, and a disassembly drone, who is very, 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 very badly disguised as a human for no specific reason. There's also the robot again, which is a militarized disassembly drone, who looks like they are from SCP Foundations. Surely that will not be important later. Also, yes, they're on a beach, no specific reason. Now we get to some actual analysis, where we see fur thumbnails. The top one appears to be episode 1, depicting B in a similar stance to where Nuri was in Murder Drones episode 1. Again, not using any of my theories from Murder Drones, or this would have very different connotations. This doesn't tell us too much though, sadly. The 3rd thumbnail is similar to how Murder Drones was what we call a Lovecraftian horror at about that time. MDI is a military-style series, probably going to look for something or search for something. We'll get back to what exactly they're doing later. We can see what looks like a modified version of Uzi's railgun, but a lot more beefy. It looks more advanced almost. We actually brought Uzi in so we could... Where is Uzi? Okay. Anyways, the The original soundtrack and the characters would imply a similar military style, which reminds me of how Murder Drones somewhat was based around a Lovecraftian horror style. If you do not know what a Lovecraftian horror is, it is a subsection of cosmic horror. The main thing that connects most of them is the idea that the original species, in this case worker drones, is very small, or that the main character specifically is small. This would be Cal, the orange one. Even though they switch about every 3 episodes, Murder Drones does count as a Lovecraftian horror. So the fact that they are mirroring this with military would imply that they have probably 2 to 3 military episodes. The second and fourth ones are harder since either of them could be either other. Based on the up to down that appears to be getting shown, I will assume this one is a second and this one is a fourth. We will analyze them later though, when we get to theoretical plots and actual theories. Yes, that's correct, as a theorist channel, we will actually make theories in this 10-hour video. We also see the same orange character, who I already named as Cal. Cal seems very scared and notices something before running to hide. Cal is also our protagonist. He has some kind of armor in, of course, his coloration, and brass knuckles, evidently for some kind of combat, although it does not appear he is built for it mentally. Dyer comes back and says that the series has, quote, deviations from the canonical timeline. In other words, his series is not canonized. Also, this means that they're what's called an alternative universe series, or an alternative universe reality. The deviations basically mean, you know, all of that you loved about Murder Drones? It doesn't exist! Of course, I continue to use it because that rule I set up earlier, but right now, as it stands, everything in Murder Drones is in question. Unlike other series like The Doll or Whispers of the Solver, where it would appear that we can actually build off of the original series, and that the main characters actually exist. You know, half the reason viewers come to fan-made content. I'll guess a reasoning later. Yeah, it's gonna be a while. Note that the thumbnails aren't canonized similar to Murder Drones, although it does look like they could be. I will assume that they are not, since it's the same with Murder Drones. We also see B, who I guess is being held hostage at Solver Point or Magnet Point by the robot. Now, let me show you this scene, because it's gonna be important.
Will we see other pre-existing characters like Uzi in the series?
Regarding returning characters, we do have some plan for characters to return, though I cannot say who will be returning or what they'll be getting up to at this time. You'll just have to wait and see for that. In Uzi's case specifically, whilst I cannot confirm if she'll actually be in Insecurity or not, I can confirm that fans should not have the expectations of her being a central character if she does end up appearing, along with other canonical characters. Again, Insecurity primarily focuses on a new cast of characters. While there are some returning characters from canon, you should not expect them to serve the same role they did in the actual show. This is because the timeline of events that shaped their lives initially has changed a lot, and this would cause them to behave and act differently than they did in canon, and thus cause them to serve different roles.
So, let's look at this. Firstly, note the character asking a question. Con Goatman, the disassembly drone. By the way, I cannot see the screens, so I do not know what's on screen right now. Like, I have an idea, but Dyer specifically mentions whether or not Uzi will be coming, and the way he says it is basically just maybe, but with a bunch of extra words. Why? Nobody knows. Like I said, they're showing the disassembly drone character, and in the background they show all the disassembly drones. The reason for this is unknown. They're also using the disassembly drone motif. Again, reason unknown. If you remember, I mentioned that Murder Drones wasn't completely finalized, or at least the plot wasn't, until the first pilot had been released and a bit after it. Considering how similar the two trailers were and what I mentioned beforehand, it could genuinely be that they are waiting to talk to. For instance, they could be talking to Kavach, they could be talking to the whoever voiced Uzi. Sorry, I don't know your name. But if that's the case, then they might be waiting to talk to those people and say, hey, can you be in our series? I mean, Kavach will say yes. He's worked in more stuff than anyone else I know, but that is a genuine possibility. I won't say whether or not it's true, because obviously even giving people hope that Uzi will be in a fan series is dangerous, but it is a possibility. Dyer also again says characters' events have been changed, which I already explained what that means. Colin, if you notice, is using the same weapons as Dax, reasons unknown, and he appears to see something through the door, get angry, and then pull out his guns. Also, yes, I believe those are Uzis. Is it Uzi? I'll have to check Latin later. They also forgot to say the scene of N voicing himself is decanonized. Does this mean N canonically voices himself? I mean, we already know B is in the facility somehow. This could actually be an SCP Foundation scenario or a snow cannon.
What is up, my Outpost 3 listeners? It's Spec here.
Hello, Spec.
Giving you all...
Spec cuts out the studio to show us something. The fact that Spec can even affect them is a concern of itself. Oh, I'm on overtime. Give me a second. The name Spec comes from the Latin specere, which means to look or watch. It gives us words like speculate and inspect. Anyways, time to hear news about the colony.
Hi, my name's Logan. I feel the need to talk about how my oil rations have gotten reduced for the third time in the last 2 months. I just don't understand why. Khan and the other higher-ups are always going on about how we're winning against those cannibals. If that's true, then why do they keep cutting our rations?
Well, that's a great question, Logan. To be honest with you, I have no idea what the higher-ups are thinking with that. After all, we all need to eat, right? If we don't get oil, we all know what happens. Oh! There is that salvage team that is due back soon. Maybe they'll have some more oil with them.
I hope so. I just feel that we need to have more of an open conversation.
Sorry to cut you off, but we have another caller coming in, as we're not allowed to say much more on that particular subject. Moving on.
So first of all, I'm shocked that they actually still use months, but more importantly, we have a Chekhov's gun. Colin is at least a higher up in the WDF, which means worker drone verse. He controls food rations. Also, they need to eat oil or something mysterious happens. This will be important for later as well. The existence of eating, by the way, is actually new. It was shown that the disassembly drones ate batteries, but I always assumed that they got the oil when they grew from the egg. This implies that disassembly drones could 100% get oil on their own. In fact, N says that so they don't overheat, and yet he likes the warm, sweet oil from the workers, which would mean drinking oil from the workers is actually less efficient than just drinking it from a can, or however they get it. So all the disassembly drones are actually just there because of loyalty, cruelty, or because they're like Congo. Yeah, that checks out. What they turn into is a good question. It could be zombie drones. If you don't know, there's a music video about murder drones called Fight Till Good Enough, which has zombie drones as well. Zombie drones being a failed idea from episode 4 that was cut. It would make sense that they decided to use that idea, since they need all the fan service they can get, considering the fact that they annihilated the main characters. But I won't jump to any conclusions yet, it's just extremely likely. Actually no, that could be the reason why they had to rewrite so much lore recently. Maybe they saw Fight Till Good Enough and that they should switch. That could actually explain a lot. Anyways, Khan and the group appear to be losing the war, but they are telling everyone they're winning, like good capitalists. Now, they mention a salvage team. What's that? This event is probably what's happening in Season 2. I mean episode 2. We'll see though.
On to our next caller. Hello there. You have spec.
So, did you see the news about how that group of detectives were able to track down that cannibal that was hiding in our midst? The way they were able to identify them with seemingly so little to go on. It's super impressive.
Yeah, so cool for sure, yeah. Well, not as cool as the WDF, obviously. I mean, they say people only join the investigative bureau when they can't meet the WDF's high standards after all.
That's not what I heard. They say you have to have a powerful processor in order to become a detective. Apparently, the only processors faster are our top scientists and leaders. I want to become a detective one day and see more of the world, instead of being cooped up in the stuffy bunker all day.
Well, the outside world ain't all cracked up to be, let me tell you about that. With the hazardous environment and long hours, that's not even mentioning the cannibals out there. Trust me, it isn't for the naive or unarmed like yourself, or those detectives.
But that's not what all the posters around the colony say. After all, they advocate for—
Gotta cut you off there as we have another caller coming in now. Sorry.
Hello, Miss No Name. Cannibals hiding in our midst. That sounds mighty familiar. Detectives finding stuff with little evidence. I have a feeling that we have a game of Among Us. There's probably a technical term, but I refuse to learn it. What is the average age of the team again? Because they could be either right in the age for either Among Us or Hunger Games, depending on where they live. Actually, no, they should just tell me their IP address. Tell me their IP, tell me their social security, just send me your devices. That'll actually help a lot. I will assume the single disassembly drone they mention is B. In Murder Drones, again assuming that the plot is similar, Ed and V are with Uzi at this point, and Uzi isn't affected by the solver enough to let them eat an entire colony. No comment on later though. Between episodes 2 and 3, N is probably too shaken up to be thinking about eating drones alive, and probably doesn't have the mental capacity to attack a colony in the first place. This basically continues the whole time. V tricks Lizzie. The two are stuck with Uzi basically the entire time after. There's not really a time. Again, this assumes that the group is still a group. If you remember, the entire reason Uzi and the disassembly drones got together was because of the fact that Uzi's father, Khan, didn't trust Uzi. If Uzi still wants to kill disassembly drones, that would make it a lot more confusing. That would mean she would have to find N or V at a point where they can't kill her, and at a point where she does not immediately kill them. How to Train Your Dragon style. This seems very unlikely considering Uzi, but yet again we are assuming that Uzi's personality is within 10 miles of the original. How many sections do I need to make? The issue of this being an AU is that there's a much more likely possibility that would basically make Uzi the main antagonist, but we'll get to it later. Also, in case you haven't figured it out, Dax probably has a crush on this character. Either that or he's drunk, probably the latter. For context, I have theories that say the worker drones were programmed to be naive, less caring about murder, that kind of stuff. Things that a corrupt boss would really want his workers to have, for no specific reason. And no, I will not question the at least 6 inches taller disassembly drone hiding amongst the workers. It just sounds way too likely. Also, it's so comical that I have a feeling it's gonna happen no matter what. Actually, I just thought B could be hiding as a worker, similar to what Sin did. Also, you may have noticed that they call disassembly drones cannibals. This is actually an important question, whether or not disassembly drones actually are even workers. I personally would say no. I say that disassembly drones and solvers are so separated from their original worker drone group that they might as well be separate. This has to do with the umbrella cannon they're in, the void cannon. I wouldn't say that it's cannibalism, and that's because the solver separates the solvers and the disassembly drones so much that I don't think they're even counted as the same species at this point. You may have noticed I've been calling them disassembly drones the whole time, and I will continue to do that, both because of that headcanon and because of simplicity, since the other three things that I may touch about, MD, Whispers of the Solver, and the Doll series, will be using disassembly drone instead of cannibal, and I will not be switching that name between communities. Between now and the last recurring session, we decided to hook up some 3090s into Uzi that costed more than a house. Thank you, NVIDIA. We learned two things. 1, void magic is based on brain power, and 2, whatever is in Uzi's brain, it is not a consciousness. Maybe I should try with a disassembly drone next. Now meet Dax, the military guy. Khan apparently wants Spec to come to a meeting. You can see a reaction to Over-2, which I did not even try researching because it's for 20 moved one to the left. Another Chekhov's gun. If you don't know what that is, look on screen. But, yeah. Apparently bad stuff happened to Spec in the last meeting. According to the character sheet, Spec is somewhat bad in the WDF, but it tries to do well. He's an adorable princess. In other words, yes, he's a princess. We also learn that he lives in Outpost 3, presumably the colony that Uzi and Khan live in, or Outpost 1 or Base 1. Dyer then comes back and explains how the old teasers are out of date for the 18th time, and we see the robot again. He is here to tell us that the broadcast was hijacked, and there is nothing to say that this is not canon. If we look at the robot's character design, he immediately reminds me of a character from Skibs, which we'll ignore. There's a clear military style, and the coloration and symbol are of the solver. Evidently, this choice to make him the character that is closest to the lure was on purpose. You may remember that Uzi is technically the absolute solver, and therefore should be able to check if this guy is a solver or not, if he even is a guy. The issue is I cannot find Spitfire for the life of me because 3090s are way too powerful, apparently. Mighty convenient, huh? On the plate, he has some Morse code, an S, either a D or a Z, either an or a P. 1 or 2 spaces, it's not clear. I couldn't find any meaning that would have to do with murder drones. If there's someone who can find a meaning in any of those letter combinations, put in the comments, and if the actual creator is watching this, put in the comments. I won't mention the fact that he claims the audio cut out for 10 minutes, but the video in total is 8 minutes long, because both it's probably an estimation, and because I do not have to deal with another Narnia. I already dealt with the last one. And the robot says he can trace the signal. I really hope this isn't real, because I already caused myself a mess playing Shanzi and Melody in the lure. There's a lot more that this implies, but let's jump into the theorizing section first. I love the fact that I cannot tell if the audio is good, so I just have to kinda hope. This is amazing. Anyways, let me explain to you what I call a snow cannon. Imagine you're a YouTuber, and you have multiple small series. One of them is, say, a Minecraft series where you make a house. Another is a Fortnite series where you buy a bunch of brain rots. A third is a Roblox series where you commit arson. These are accurate to their communities. If you wanted to combine all of them together, you would make what I call a snow cannon. It is a cannon or a lure that is put on top of multiple smaller ones, covering them into one uniform group. As they say, snow falls on top. Theoretically, System Lockdown Studios or Animator thing would be counted as either a snow cannon or a multiversal cannon. I probably do not need to explain that. If you need help, check on screen. The reason for putting themselves in the lure, I could not find, but surely they have an actual reason. Now, let's try to make a theoretical idea of what the first 4 episodes of the series will be, since we actually have enough information that I'm willing to try. Murder Drones is what's called a Lovecraftian horror with an imposter storyline. Again, we will be using popular theories rather than my own. Episode 1 of Murder Drones is mainly just learning about characters. Here we met the Disassembly Drones, which were the main tip of the big bad evil guy's iceberg. Uzi fought them, and because of it, started off the storyline. MDI will be similar. It will begin with meeting Dax, likely in a similar storybook opening, and I can confidently say this since most viewers will be coming from Murder Drones, and these two evidently have enough changes that it would make sense to have one. If not, they're just gonna have a lot of exposition. Uzi is strange. Her existence as the absolute solver, like I said, relies on a hatred of disassembly drones and a separation from her father. Obviously, if Khan were actively fighting against them, Uzi would have much harder of a time working with the disassembly drones. But there is actually an idea. What if Doll's situation is found out quickly, or she is actually helping them? Instead of cabin fever happening at the lodge, though, that would mean it happens in the settlement where Khan lives. Khan already lost his wife, Nuri, to the solver, so that would be utterly soul-crushing and push him into insanity. That could be the snapping point in a later episode, possibly causing an over too. It seems unlikely since that would mean Uzi becomes the main antagonist, and obviously they wouldn't want to do that for fan service. But it is a possibility. Episode 2 in Murder Drones is where Uzi learns about the disassembly drones, Mur, and the extent of the solver. This is mostly world building on the main plot, and also started Uzi's side plot journey of not being eaten alive by a solver. This is where the her aspect also starts. I think something similar will be happening in MDI. Likely they will go out to war, they will go out to battle, they will do a search party. Something has to happen that has to do with the military. Worker drone. It would make sense if Dax finds out that B, the disassembly drone, is inside the outpost and has to try to warn people. And then that one group, the detectives, finds out and then tries to help him find B. It is an option. Again, it's kind of just throwing stuff out, but it could happen. When B will be found out is a good question. We know she gets found out because there are so many images of her killing people. If it happens in episode 2, it would be world building, which means it probably won't happen. My guess is episodes 3 or 4, mainly because it would be built up to in the previous episodes. Our next big question is what's happening in episode 3. It's never said that the protagonist changes, and Ram, who is shown in the thumbnail, is not called a main character or a protagonist. The reason N is being shown in the thumbnail could just be for fan service, since they would probably react to him more than Cal. It is clear that something happens between V and B. We know that N's group was close to getting top in the corridor for most kills, so they may have been racing B, who wants to show loyalty. Maybe B was hiding in the outpost and that's why she wasn't killing a bunch of drones. It's unclear. The reason we cannot go into episodes 5, 7, 6, and 8 is because we do not know who the villain is. We have 4 main groups: the WDF, the Solvers, Uzi's little party, and then the detectives. All of these groups have the ability to be protagonists, antagonists, basically anything. It is never implied that any of them do anything. Due to the nature of the series and the secrecy around it, I have a feeling that there's going to be multiple large plot holes having to do with these groups. We don't know whether, for instance, the WDF works with Dax to kill the Solvers, or tries to save them because of Uzi. Maybe Khan is trying to revive Uzi and creates the Solver. We have absolutely no idea. The amount of secrecy around this is actually surprising. either meaning that one of these groups is going to be the major antagonist, or that there's going to be a large amount of sudden shifts in the plot, or as we call them, plot holes. There are no other real theories after this point, and since there's so much secrecy, we could actually have a Sail on Earth situation where all of the different theorists, because of this problem, look at the same information and come up with vastly different stuff. So basically, now that I have about 50 minutes of content to edit, which, by the way, takes 2 hours per minute, I have something to tell you. The next video I'll be posting will be talking about all 4 of the major fan projects. If you have any theories, toss them in the comments. Subscribe, don't even put on notifications. Come back in a month and I'll probably have something done. See you in a bit. I decided that I should fully con Goatman as the joke for the entire series. Okay. I'm gonna go check because one of his videos is going to come out soon. Apparently it's a full episode. They're at the tail end of when it's supposed to come out. And we're cooked.